Last week I was in the grocery store, fluorescent lights, Muzak playing. I'm standing in the cereal aisle in my reading glasses, reading ingredients on a label, because that's my life now. And suddenly, over those cheap ceiling speakers, the opening riff of Breaking the Law, and my hand made the horns before my brain even knew what was happening, 55 years old, holding a box of Raisin Bran, throwing the horns in aisle 7. And here's the thing, that wasn't some old reflex waking up from a long sleep. That reflex never went to sleep. Not once, not in 40 years. Here's what I want to talk about today. There's this story people love to tell about guys like us. Maybe you've heard it. It goes, you were a metalhead in high school, then life happened, you packed it all away, and now, in your 50s, you're rediscovering it. The prodigal headbanger returns. It's a nice story. It's also not my story, and I'm betting it's not yours either, because I never left. I've listened to this music every single day for 40 years, the same albums that rearranged my brain in 1984, plus every new one worth hearing since. It's not a reunion. There was never a breakup. So today I want to answer a different question. Not, why did we come back? But something better. Why did it never leave in the first place? Let's go back. If you're a Gen X metalhead, you heard this sentence at least 400 times growing up. It's just a phase. Your mom said it, your guidance counselor said it, your aunt said it at Thanksgiving, right after asking why you couldn't listen to nice music like your cousin Brian. Brian listened to Air Supply, by the way. Nobody's asking Brian about his musical journey at family reunions anymore. My own mother was convinced I'd joined a cult, and honestly, looking at my bedroom walls back then, Eddie staring down from every angle, a Slayer poster that genuinely frightened the dog, I can see where she got the idea. She used to stand in my doorway with this look. You know the look. Half concern, half, where did I go wrong? She'd say, you'll grow out of it. I remember thinking, and I was maybe 15, no, I won't. I wasn't being defiant. I wasn't trying to shock her. I just knew. The way you know your own name, the way you know which hand you write with. And here's what separates the lifers from everybody else. For some kids, it was a costume, weekend eyeliner, a borrowed denim vest. Those kids grew out of it because there was nothing to grow out of. It never got past the skin. But for us, the ones who saved lunch money for cassettes, the ones who read every word of the liner notes like scripture, the ones who heard that first real riff and felt something in our chest say, oh, there you are, I've been looking for you. There was nothing to grow out of either. But for the opposite reason. It wasn't on us. It was in us. And you can't grow out of your own blood. Here's what younger fans never really got to experience, and I say this with love, because the kids discovering Sabbath today are all right in my book. They never got to experience metal as a lifeline, because in 1985, if you were the weird kid, the quiet kid, the angry kid, the kid whose home life was a mess, there was no internet, there was no online community, there was no finding your people with a hashtag. There was just you, alone in your room. And then there was that moment. You remember it. Everybody watching this remembers it. The first time you heard your album, the one that split your life into before and after. For me, it was a dubbed cassette of Ride the Lightning that a kid named Danny handed me on the bus. No case, no artwork, just a Maxell tape with Metallica written on it in ballpoint pen, spelled wrong, because of course it was. I went home, I put it in the deck, and by the time Fade to Black ended, I was a different person. Not because it made me darker, that's the part parents never understood. It made me lighter. Somebody out there felt what I felt. Somebody took all that anger and confusion sitting in my chest like a stone and turned it into something powerful. They screamed it into a microphone, so I didn't have to scream it into my pillow. Metal never made us angry. Metal was proof that our anger could become something. And not long after that, I did the thing that sealed it forever. I got a guitar, a cheap one. The action was about a half-inch off the neck. Playing an F chord required grip strength and prayer, but I learned to palm mute on that thing. Chunk, 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 chunk. And I want you to remember that detail because it's going to matter later. Now here's where the usual version of this story takes a turn. This is where the guy on YouTube says, "But then life happened, and the music faded away." Not here, because it didn't. Life absolutely happened. The 90s came. Flannel happened. Some of those bands became favorites too. Alice in Chains, Ministry, Primus, Helmet. Some of our favorite bands broke up, some cut their hair, and yes, we took that personally, and some made albums we don't discuss in polite company. You're already naming them in your head. We got jobs. Real ones, with fluorescent lighting, and a guy named Steve who wanted to talk about golf. We got married, had kids. Some of us, no judgment, bought minivans. And you know what I was listening to on the way to that job? Everything heavy, old, and new. Maiden, Ozzy, Metallica, Obituary, Meshuggah, Decapitated, Cannibal Corpse, Gojira, Lamb of God, to name a few. You know what was playing in that minivan, at a responsible volume, with a car seat in the back? Rust in Peace. My kids' first lullabies had blast beats in the next room, slightly muffled out of courtesy. That's the part the prodigal Metalhead story gets wrong about guys like us. The music never went into a box in the garage. It went into the car, into the headphones at work, into the garage, not in a box, but on a stereo, playing while I changed the oil. The world around the music changed constantly. The music was the thing that didn't. New job, same albums in the car on day one. New house. First thing hooked up was the stereo, before the washing machine, and I stand by that decision. Kids screaming, bills piling up, life throwing everything it had, headphones on, 45 minutes, recalibrated. Everybody else I knew had music as a phase of life. We had it as a constant of life. Their soundtracks changed with the decades. Ours deepened. And it wasn't just the old stuff either. That's the other myth, that guys like us froze in 1988 and never let anything new in. Please. We were there for every wave. Okay, we're still arguing about some of those waves. But we were there. New bands, new albums, every year, every decade, right up to this morning. The collection never stopped growing because the appetite never stopped. 40 years, every single day. Some people meditate, some people pray. We press play. Now, remember that cheap guitar, the palm muting, chunk, chunk. Here's the moment I want to tell you about, because this, more than anything, is my proof that it's in the blood. To this day, 40 years later, watch what happens when I pick up a guitar. Any guitar. Doesn't matter whose it is, doesn't matter where I am. Guitar store, buddy's house, my own living room. I don't decide what to play, my hands decide, and my hands are metal. Before a single conscious thought happens, the right hand is already resting on the bridge, and out come the palm-muted power chords. Every time. Chunk, 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 open E, gallop, chug. It's automatic. It's involuntary. It's practically medical. I have never once picked up a guitar and accidentally played jazz. It's just not in there. A guy at a guitar shop watched me do this a while back. 50-something guy, gray in his beard, picks up a used Les Paul, and the first sound out of it is a full-on thrash gallop. He laughed and did the exact same thing on the next guitar over. Two total strangers, both riffing, both grinning, didn't exchange 10 words, didn't need to. Because here's what 40 years of daily listening does. It doesn't just live in your memory. It moves into your muscles. Your hands carry it. Your pulse carries it. I air drum fills at red lights with terrifying accuracy. I can't remember why I walked into the kitchen, but I know every drum hit on Master of Puppets, in order, forever. That real estate in my brain is spoken for, permanently, and I wouldn't trade it for 1,000 kitchen errands. You don't get back into something that lives in your hands. It's not a hobby you pick up and put down. It's a reflex, it's wiring, it's blood. So back to the question from the beginning. Why did it never leave? Here's my answer. Everything else from back then was decoration. The hair, the clothes, the posters. Decoration. Decoration fades. But the music got in deeper. It got in during the years we were being built. 13, 14, 15, when the concrete of who we are was still wet. And when something gets into wet concrete, it doesn't wash off later. It's part of the foundation. Metal isn't something we listen to, it's something we're made of. And I mean that literally, not as a t-shirt slogan. It shaped how we see everything. Metal taught us that intensity isn't a character flaw, that you can look directly at the dark stuff, death, fear, injustice, and not flinch. That being an outsider isn't a punishment. Sometimes it's a superpower. That loyalty matters. That authenticity matters. That when the whole world tells you to turn it down, sometimes the correct answer is to turn it up. Those aren't musical preferences. Those are values. That's character. And this is why still a metalhead at 55 is almost the wrong way to say it. Still makes it sound like an achievement, like I've been white-knuckling it all these years, resisting the urge to buy a Michael Bublé record. There was no effort. There was no resistance. There was nothing to resist. You don't say a river is still wet. It defines who we are, not the whole of us, but the load-bearing wall. Take it out, and the whole structure comes down, which is exactly why it was never coming out. My mother, by the way, 82 now. A few Christmases ago, she saw my maiden shirt, shook her head, smiled, and said, "Still." And I said, "Ma, always." 40 years it took her, but I think she finally gets it. Now, some people will hear all this and say it's just nostalgia. Old guys clinging to the soundtrack of their youth. And look, I love nostalgia. The smell of a record store, the hiss before track one, reading lyrics off a cassette J-card unfolded like a treasure map. I could swim in that all day, and on this channel, we frequently do. But here's the problem with calling this nostalgia. Nostalgia is missing something that's gone. Nothing here is gone. You can't be nostalgic for something you did this morning. When I put on a 1986 album today, I'm not visiting a museum. I'm not looking at my youth through glass. That record still works. Right now, on this body, in this decade. Painkiller doesn't sound like the past. Painkiller sounds like Tuesday, if Tuesday hit the gym. And the shelf keeps growing. New albums, new bands, this year, every year. The old records aren't relics I return to. They're just the oldest members of a collection that never stopped expanding. That's not a man living in the past. That's a man with 40 years of accumulated evidence that he was right the first time. Here's the real difference, though. At 15, the music carried the weight of loneliness and algebra. At 55, the weight is heavier. Aging parents, health stuff, kids leaving, friends we've lost, and we've lost some, haven't we? The weight changed. The music never blinked. It carried the small stuff then. It carries the heavy stuff now. Same amp, same riffs. Bigger job. That's not nostalgia. That's a 40-year working relationship. So here's where I land. 55 years old. The hair is thinner, what's left of it. The knees sound like a bag of microwave popcorn when I stand up. I own concert earplugs now. Good ones. The kind that come in a little case. Zero shame. Everything about me changed. Except the one thing that never did. 40 years. Every day. Same albums, new albums, morning commutes and midnight garages. Through every job and every move, and every version of my life. One unbroken soundtrack running underneath all of it. The music got heavier. Our hair got thinner. Our knees filed formal complaints. But that 15-year-old kid holding a dubbed cassette with the band name spelled wrong, he didn't grow up into me. He is me. He's been here the whole time. Every day, every play button, every palm-muted chord my hands throw out before my brain can vote. It was never a phase, and it was never a comeback. It's just who we are. It's in the blood, and blood doesn't take years off. Turn it up. So now it's your turn. Drop it in the comments. What's the album you've been listening to for 40 straight years and still haven't worn out? And bonus points, how far into picking up a guitar do you make it before the palm muting starts? I read every comment, and honestly, The comment section on this channel is the best record store hangout left on earth. Oh, and one more thing. If 40 years of daily listening sounds intense, wait until I tell you how we learned to play these songs in the first place. No YouTube, no tabs online, just a cassette deck, a rewind button, and pure stubbornness. We're going to talk about it. Bring your calluses. Until then, stay loud.